We were just waiting for more participants to join, and now I guess we have enough of you. I can see 500 people, and I guess we can start. First of all, we hope you're all keeping well and safe. Thank you for your time in joining us for this webinar. Weekend 135, Navigating Through Your Coursebook. And this webinar is specially designed for elementary level teachers, where they will learn about more in-class and online teaching for first semester course books, weekend 1, weekend 3, and weekend 5. Before we go ahead any further, I'm just going to pause and check if the audio connection is all right. There is a hand icon on the right side of your screen. You will find the hand icon just below your name. Can you please click on the hand icon if you can hear me, so we know we're sorted on the audio? Thank you. Excellent, Nasir. Okay, perfect. So the audio is fine. I've also dropped a link how you can connect to the audio in case you're facing any issues. So we're sorted there. You might have noticed you're only seeing yourself, because I know some people have mentioned they can only see their name. That's all right. It's just because of GDPR issues and sensitivity, we are not disclosing all the participants list. But we do have more than 500 teachers who have joined us today. So thank you for your time. I want to introduce you to the moderators for today. Myself, Sarah Shuja, along with my colleague, Nikos, who's the product manager for Saudi editions, Medini, who's the sales director, Saudi Arabia, Nasir, who's the learning solutions consultant, Saudi Arabia. We will be there in the background to help you out with the Q&As and answer any questions that you may have, or if you face any trouble during the webinar, you can just shoot out to us and let us know. I'm going to now introduce you to Danai, our wonderful speaker, who is a teacher trainer, an editor, a content developer, and also an author. Danai has successfully delivered several training workshops for supervisors and teachers in Saudi Arabia. Danai has also co-authored Saudi editions, and she's also a co-author there. So we're really grateful to have Danai here with us. Thank you, Danai, for joining us. Danai has also very kindly created a handout for the session today. You can use this handout for the rest of the session, because a lot of things that Danai is going to present is going to be in the handout. It's just a handout for you to take home. And I'm just going to drop the link so you can download the handout for yourself. I'm quickly going to cover housekeeping slides before we move on any further. Before I pass on to Danai, just some information for you for a seamless webinar experience. If you're facing any connectivity issues with the audio, we recommend you can call in using your phone. Although we checked this, and I think most of you can hear me all right, so we're sorted there. But if you're facing any issues, please let us know in the chat box if you cannot hear the audio at this point, and one of my colleagues can drop in the link how you can connect yourself to the audio. We do recommend closing down any high networking apps such as Netflix, YouTube, and any gaming platform, because this is going to affect your bandwidth during the webinar. You will also be receiving the certificate for the participation, but this is going to be after we complete the first course webinar series. So this is going to be around November 19th. That's when we complete the last webinar. So once the webinar is completed, that's when we're going to hand out. And it's going to come in your email, so watch out for that email where you can then download the certificate after November 19th. You will have the Q&A opportunity towards the end of the session. So we will take Q&As from the audience, and if we have time, that is, hopefully. But yeah, we will do that. And you must have noticed you're muted, so you won't be able to unmute yourself, but you can engage with us during the webinar through the Q&A and chat. It's on the right side of your screen. And a lot of you have already commented in the chat. So good morning, thank you. You know how that's done. The Q&A box is located on the right-hand corner of your screen. And we do encourage you to ask us any questions around the presentation or anything you have in mind. And we're going to try to cover this as we go along or ask in the Q&A. You can also use the chat box if you have any comments or you want to engage with the presenter. You can also use the polling function, which is on the right side. Again, it's a speaker icon. If you click on the speaker icon, you can see the options if you need to use that. Of course, our moderators will be here to help you out. And any questions, anything, just drop them off in the chat box or the Q&A, and we will help you out. And I hope you have a great session. Thank you so much. I am now going to pass over to Danai, who is now going to start. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Danai. You're muted, Danai.
Sorry. Thank you, Suresh. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. As Suresh said, we're going to be talking about your course book, different parts of it, what kind of purpose they serve. And some issues about in-class versus online teaching and so on. Please do ask questions, make comments. I'm not going to be able to answer all of them during the session, but we'll do the best we can, answer some during and some after the session. Okay, we are talking about young learners, right? Okay, from what I've heard so far and so on, there are quite a few issues that a lot of you are concerned about. So I'll try and address those as best I can. Okay, first of all, when we're talking about young learners, just very quickly, I'm not going to spend too long about this, but just to remind you, think about them. Think about your young learners. Do they all think the same way? Do they learn the same way? Are they experienced and successful language learners? This is important. Can we please have some answers for this one? Can you use your chat box?
I see 2 no's from Arij and from Fahad.
Actually, they are experienced and successful language learners because they have learned their own language. Remember? They have learned Arabic. So in terms of the concept of learning language, they are experienced. How did they learn Arabic? They went through a number of different stages, and they observed and tried out things, and people corrected them, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to turn this into a lecture of L1 acquisition, but I think it's important for us to remember that yes, everybody learns the language. Young learners have been successful in learning their own language, learning about the world, learning about how to deal with people, learning so much. So yes, they do think, and no, they don't all think exactly the same way. And how did they learn their mother tongue? Did anyone translate into another language for them? No, thank you, Mariam. No. They listened, okay? They observed. They mimicked, okay? They repeated things and watched to see what the outcome would be. Let's just remember that. Was there any reading and writing involved? Were there any grammar rules? No. Yes, they did imitate. Thank you for the comment. But it's not mechanical imitation. There's a lot of thought, there's a lot of processing going on that shows what wonderful minds they have. And naturally, they don't lose those minds when they come into the classroom to learn another language, right? It's just another language. Yes, they learn through, thank you, Amar, backwards. Yes, they learn through interaction, they learn through doing. Thank you very much. So they learn through doing, they learn through communication and through observing what happens in communication. So yes, they listen and repeat to learn the mother tongue, but it's not mechanical, okay? It's in real context. Yes, they observe body language. They observe exactly what happened. Now, if we take that into consideration, which skills and abilities and knowledge areas are more developed in children? And how might they affect the materials and procedures in L2 learning in English? I'm not going to try and sort of zip through this, but it is important. Thank you very much for the comments. Yes, they usually try any word they hear, but they also observe to see what the outcome is going to be, what is going to happen, okay? So they know how to use it and whether it works. Now, our children, our young learners, stronger in spoken skills or written skills? Can we have a few answers on that? Spoken, yes, thank you very much. Yes, because they're exposed to spoken language constantly, and yes, thank you, through interaction with people, hearing other people speaking, watching things on TV, watching things on the computer, and yes, they do, they start very early, so it's spoken skills. Why have we hit this point? Well, I'm just trying to preempt some things. Please do bear that in mind, that they are stronger in spoken skills. Yes, they have gone through the basic literacy skills in their own language, but they're still quite strong in oral skills. So should we begin with teaching them how to read and write English? Can we have an answer? No, absolutely not. We delay that. So we expose them to the spoken language, we expose them to the sound system. Thank you very much. Yes, no, very strong no. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yes, let them touch the language. That's a nice way of putting it. Let them experience the language. Let them expose them to the language. But also, may I remind you of something else? Children who use a computer, and most of them do, if there's a computer around, remember they're natives, technology natives. They might be exposed actually to English a lot more than we give them credit to. So it's worth finding out. Also, it's worth finding out what their favorite toys, games, activities are, and if they affect the way they learn. Why am I saying that? Because if you observe some very young learners, actually, you're amazed at the way they can negotiate. Yes, exactly, computer games. This is what I was going to say. My God, I'm not going to speak anymore. You're saying it all. Okay, no, technology is not enough, but they do develop amazing skills, including coordination skills and some basic computation and all sorts of things. So really, we shouldn't think of them as not knowers. We should think of them as knowledgeable and experienced young people. So they're little, they have some real life experience. They are natives when it comes to technology, so it means that they can really negotiate their way through this space, digital space. To be frank, I've got children too. I mean, they're children. They're adults now. But a long time ago, I tried to get on to one quite amazing interactive game that my son was playing. I really couldn't get used to the space, to this spatial awareness of how to move things around, to move the people from one place to another, from one point to another. It's not an easy thing to do, but it comes naturally to children. Okay, now think of your own experience as a learner. Put yourself in their place. Do you remember how you felt when your teacher smiled at you? Did that feel good? Proud, yes, absolutely. How did you feel when your teacher told you off about something you'd done? Okay. When they told you off, sad, yes. When your teacher was upset and you didn't know the reason, how did you feel? Sad. When your teacher ignored you, upset, yes, absolutely, confused. If he or she asked you a question that you couldn't answer, upset, sad. If all of a sudden the teacher asked you to come up to the front and read and demonstrate something, yes, very good. I can see shy, lost. Okay. What about if the teacher refused to talk to you? You don't know the reason why. Sad. And you wonder, you're confused, yes, angry, ask why, disappointed. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay. A colleague actually turned around and told me that it's a lot it's easier not to remember, to block your memory of how things feel, because if you don't, then it's very hard for you to make some hard decisions and get the kids to do things that you know are challenging for them. Yes, new challenges. I'm not sure how it would work for each one of you. But it's good to remember. It's good to remember so you can manage things accordingly. If I pause slightly from time to time, it's because I'm also trying to have a look at your comments. Yes, kids remember everything. Kids do remember everything. The problem is, do we? I don't know. It's survival possibly that makes us block some things. But it's good to remember. It's good to remember if you're teaching kids, if you're teaching young learners. Oh, sorry. Okay. Have you all got your hand out? Yes? No? Asma? No? Yes.
Okay, I'll send the link again. It's the same link that I shared when we started. So
Okay.
I'm going to drop the link again for everyone. It's the same link that I shared when we started the session, so you can download the handout. There you go. Sorry, Denai.
It's all right. It's okay. No, I mean, it's better if we communicate and find out what's happening. This is great. Thank you so much. Great. Already had it. Okay, fine. Thank you so much for your comments, questions. Thank you so much for being there. It gets very lonely when it's one thinks that you're addressing nobody, that you're in a void. Okay, thank you. That's wonderful. Okay. All right, so can you please have that handy? And let's move on to your course book. We can. Okay? These are the ones that we'll be talking about today, in the morning and in the afternoon. Okay? So, to go back, series components. Students' book and workbook combined, as you know. Teacher's guide. Do you use the teacher's guide, please? Yes. Yes. Sometimes. No. Okay. Great. Okay. Do you find it useful? No, sometimes. Okay. Well, we'll discuss why and how. Okay. You can always adapt things. You can add things. Obviously, you can adapt things to your learners' needs. But what I'm trying to get to is find out if you have access to the teacher's book. So it sounds as if you do. Okay, the audio program. Okay. Flashcards. Yes. Do you use the flashcards? Okay, fine. The posters. Learning center material. The interactive whiteboard software, an active book, and tests. Okay. It sounds as if you do, or many of you do have access to the material and you do use them. Okay. Let's look at teaching and learning, your handout. No, because it's hidden the end. Evaluation. Okay, the evaluation, you mean the learner's evaluation, Amal? Evaluating learners, okay, we'll get around to that. We'll get around to that. But basically, the most important part of that is formative evaluation, ongoing evaluation that will help you decide what your learners need, what you need to do to help them improve, and so on and so forth, rather than written tests and so on. Yes, great, Amal. Okay. All right, that's wonderful. Badra has collected all the material and made it easy for people. That's great. So basically, you're teaching, you're collaborating as teachers. That's great. Okay. Now, on your handout, yes, good. You can see a number of comments that teachers, parents, and some students have made about teaching and learning online. Yes, I know some of you are going to be using WeCan for the first time. We're aware of that. This is why I'm trying to go through different components kind of a little more carefully. Can you please have a look at the comments, and can you tell if each comment is made by a teacher, a student, a parent, or another student, and what helped you decide? Okay? So somebody says, I'm not sure it's possible for children to learn remotely. Who do you think has made that comment? The parents. Okay. The family. So that's a comment you get from parents, yes? Okay, yes. We can is good to practice language. We can is fairly straightforward. There are no mysteries in it. And when we get to looking at when we start looking at examples, I'll point out why. Okay. 2, I think it's great. No need to take the children to school, and it's a lot safer. Erin. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there seems to be agreement there. Have you heard this sort of thing from parents? Yes. Okay. This is not how we were trained to teach. I'm not so keen on technology. Teacher. Is this the way some of you feel or felt when you had to deal with, when you had to teach online? Great. No, you say. Mixed. At first, the first days, yes, of course. Yeah, okay, fine. So, yes, and somebody mentioned that yes, it was difficult to get used to and so on. And there were challenges that you had to learn new ways of doing it. Okay, great. 4, well, it's okay when we work together in breakout rooms. I don't like it when I have to sit in front of the screen on my own with nobody to talk to. Student, yes, a student. Do you use breakout rooms? That's very good. I'm looking at all your comments. Okay, fine. Too noisy. You mean the breakout rooms are too noisy? Yeah, okay. In the beginning, yes, of course it would be more difficult. You can't use breakout rooms immediately right from the start when there are 0 beginners. You have to deal with things differently, but very gradually. Okay, you don't have breakout rooms. All right. Yes, time is the biggest challenge always for teachers. The thing is, one thing to remember about breakout rooms is you can listen in, yeah? You can listen in and correct, help them, make sure. Everybody wants face-to-face. I mean, we've all kind of got used to the classroom and to space and all that. Okay. It's pretty cool for some time. It's almost like playing games. Well, almost. What do you think? Oh, come on. It's nothing like a game. It's boring, especially when you have just sat, when you have to just sit and listen without doing anything. Well, obviously, we're talking about students, yeah, discussing it. Yes, good. We're fortunate to have the option, quite frankly. Can you imagine schools closing down for months on end? Okay. Grown-ups, teachers, okay. Yes, there's some enjoyment. So I'm not going to go through any more. Good, great, thank you so much. And a teacher that I think you will be able to understand who says it's challenging, all right, especially if you're not so keen on technology. I don't mean using mobiles and so on, but this sort of thing. However, now that I've dealt with the initial difficulties, I must admit, I can see some of the benefits. Challenging, yes, of course, there are always challenges, but it is what we have to do now, yeah? And yes, a lot of you said that the children like technology. Yes, they do, and as we said, they're native. So let's go back to we can. Okay. It's a great way of teaching. Yes, fine, super. Okay. Back to your material. Okay, as you can see the classroom English poster, yes? Now you're a pro, yes. It's a matter of getting used to it. Change is difficult, always. Okay, classroom English posters. Do you use these posters with your students? This one, for example. This one. This one. Do you use them to present, or do you adapt them and use them for different activities? Okay, not yet. Okay, fine. Okay, usually to start a lesson. Yes, that's great. Okay, I'll give you a few ideas, and maybe in the afternoon I'll show you how you can do some of those things. Okay, in this poster, for example, you are looking at something which obviously you would do as TPR in your class, yeah, total physical response, to get the children to listen to you or the audio, giving instructions and getting them to do the things. In this particular case, the students are not expected to necessarily learn the instructions. What's important is for them to understand the instructions and do what they're asked. So in class, you would do it that way. What would you do, however, online? Okay, if you haven't got too many students, you might say, well, I still see them, I can see parts of them, so I can ask them to mime. Yes. So you say, take out your pencil, and your students have to take out their pencil to pick up and show you their pencil. All the things that are involved here are things that the students are likely to have in front of them and the computer as they watch online. So it wouldn't be hard to do. Monitor bigger, I'm not sure. Yes, books and pens, yes, give them instructions, okay? So you can see that they're doing it because they're miming or they're actually doing those things, and you can see it on video. But it's very hard to do that. Very hard to do that online if you have more students, right? So one of the things you can do is number the activities, yeah? Say the instruction, and the students have to say which number each activity is. Okay, yes, raising hands to show that they understand, but you don't know if they understand, really. It's better to see all the students. How are you going to do it online? But what I'm going to mention here, and it's something that we're going to discuss throughout these sessions, is how you can transfer activities that you would normally do in the classroom online. Okay? So if you wanted to use the poster, would you show yourself with the poster behind you and point to it? No, great, thank you. No, very good. Do you show them the poster on the screen? Yes, absolutely. So this is really quite an important rule when you're teaching online. Focus on their learners. It's a different kind of learner-centeredness. Focus on your learners and think about what you want them to pay attention to focus on. If that's what they need to see on the screen, not you teaching in class, having been filmed teaching in class. The reason, is it okay to translate the instructions? Is it necessary? If you have the pictures that show the exact activity, is it necessary to translate the instructions? No. There's no reason to translate the instructions. You're not training your learners to become translators, and it's not necessary to translate the instructions. What you need to do is to get them to look at the pictures and the visuals carefully. Okay, again, another point that's going to come up. Sometimes, because of, as you said, time pressure, we rush through things very quickly. But it's not easy to notice things in pictures. Remember, it's a kind of reading as well, and it's got to do with perceptions. Yes, you put the instructions with the pictures together. Yes, absolutely. So you can separate them. Okay, so you have to help learners notice things in the pictures and look at the pictures very, very carefully so they can help them understand. Now, this is quite a strong point in We Can. Regardless of whether you like the style of pictures or not, everything is illustrated very often. Not very often, almost always in the beginning, including instructions for activities. So even if they don't understand what they need to do, they can see what's happening in the picture. We'll look at a page that does exactly that in a minute. Okay, beautiful nature. Obviously, yes, you can separate these, look and say. Yes, of course you can. You can get them to repeat things. You can remove the words and have the pictures only, show the poster on the board, sorry, on the screen, point to elicit the word for each picture, yeah? If not, what you can do is memory games, not all of the pictures, there's too many of them, maybe use 2 rows, have them look at the rows, remove it, get them to say what's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay? So concentrate on this only. There are many things you can do with these. Okay, my daily routine, again, quite useful. You can jumble these in order, remove the writing, jumbled order, and get them to listen to you and write the number in the order they hear things, okay? But that sort of thing you can also use in breakout rooms in pair work. I know some of you are not keen on using breakout rooms. Some of you are not keen. Yes. Some of you are not keen on using different ways, different types of interaction in class, but we have to just make the most of the time we have. Okay. This is another option, and it's good to pay a little bit of attention to this because it's something that's going to overlap with what we're going to talk about in the afternoon. Flashcards, okay? These are the flashcards. Copied the flashcards, okay, onto a file. Wrote the words in jumbled order. This is for a reading activity. Get them to look at the card and match with the word. But if it's very beginning, they can't read very comfortably, you can forget about the words completely. Don't have the word. Get them to listen and point to the right color. If it's online, again, you can use numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can write the numbers underneath those. And every time you say something, okay, somebody's talking about cards, using cards in a big room. Yes, I agree. It's difficult to use them, but you have to move around and you have to move quickly and you can use them to drill. Yeah? So online, on the screen, supposing you have these, you can use your cursor, yeah? Nominate a student, say Asma, okay? Maida, okay? Maha, and so on and so forth. As quickly as possible, but not too quickly. And also, don't use the word quickly when you give instructions to the kids. Because if you make time, if you make it all a race all the time, you're going to have the same children responding and doing things all the time and monopolizing things, which is not a good idea. It's not going to include all your learners. Ask them to raise the color I mentioned. You're mentioning worksheets in class and so on. So what I'm beginning to realize is that some of you are teaching in class, face-to-face, and some of you are doing both maybe, or some of you are teaching online, which is exactly what we've expected, I think, all along. Okay? Online, you can give a picture and multiple choice. Yes, different possibilities. But the thing is, again, focus on spoken language. Okay? How do you get them to speak? Or do you get them to do everything quietly, silently, online? This is the challenging part of it. Yes, you asked them what is this color. Sorry, let me go back again because you're commenting on these. Remember, you can use the cursor to point. Okay?
Then can I just interrupt you for like 2
Yeah,
minutes?
yeah.
Okay, sorry, but I just want to address 3 things for housekeeping because there are a few questions. There are actually a lot of questions coming in, and these are participants who have joined us later when we covered the housekeeping. So
Right.
I'll try going through this again because I know they are struggling with things. I just want to address 3 things. You can only see your name on the right side. Please don't panic. Don't think you're in the hidden list, and don't think you're not seen. You're there. The reason you can only see yourself is because of GDPR issues and sensitivity. We don't want to share all the participants' name on the right side. There are currently 786 of you here. So please don't worry that you're the only one attending. Second thing, your attendance is automatically going to be marked. So you don't need to sign anywhere. You won't need to. We have a record if you've logged in. The only request we do is you log in using your own email, your own link, the one that you received in the confirmation email, and avoid using your colleague's link because that will mean you got logged in using your colleague's link. So that will show us that Mr. Khalid has logged in instead of Mr. Ali. So that's the only thing we stress, but your attendance is being marked, so don't worry about that. And the last thing, the third thing I just want to address is the chat box. It is being able, so we can see all your comments. That's how Danai is reading your comments. The difference is you guys cannot see the comments that are coming in from other people. So don't think that we can't read it. That's how Danai knows everything and she's reading those out for you. We can see your comments, we can read them. Unfortunately, it's not visible to everyone. And that's only because, again, GDPR issues, protection, and a lot of these sensitivity issues. So you won't be able to see the comments from other people. However, whatever comments that you're sending our way, we are very much able to see them, and that's why Danai is able to pick up. So please feel free to engage with the presenter, and don't think we're not watching that. Thank you. I hope that helps. Sorry, Danai, I just wanted to cover that.
No, thank you. Thank you, Suresh. I think that was necessary for quite a few people. Okay, just to show you one more example of how you can combine things again. These are flashcards that show activities. Obviously, you can prepare your own flashcards with photos and all sorts of things, but also do ask your learners to prepare flashcards. So if each learner prepares one flashcard with a photo or a drawing and so on, they'll feel part of it. They'll feel that they're contributing to the lesson very personally, and it helps. Okay, it's also another way of flipping things, of giving them some responsibility. One of the things that, something that you can do as an example for this one. Okay, again, put them on the screen, put them up on the screen. Yes, you can point and ask the kids to say what is involved in each case, what the action is. You can use these pictures not only for this particular lesson in Week 3, but you can also use the pictures if you want to prompt these words, these actions, yes? So try and look at them more broadly. Anything you have, any visuals, any material you have to prompt is important. This way, your own speaking time is limited to allow the students to speak more. Okay, back to this. So you can do it without the words, just the numbers and prompts. You can give them a list of the activities written to match, okay, and that would be reading, but you can't do that right at the beginning, okay, when they begin, because they're not familiar with English reading and writing. They haven't got the literacy skills in English to do this comfortably. So it would be a reading activity if you ask them to read and match. If you just say things, they listen and match, that's a listening activity. Okay. These are some of the features of We Can that have been incorporated in order to deal with certain issues in class or online. An important one of these is lesson goals. It's important for parents, for learners, for everybody to feel they're moving on, they're developing, there is progress. So lesson aims in We Can make that very clear. Lesson goals, sorry. Okay, some children are going to have problems with pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. It doesn't matter, they're beginning. This is why you have chants, drama activities, role plays, and games to help the children become familiar with rhythm, pronunciation, and intonation. And remember, all you want them to do is to pronounce things in a way that's intelligible, that is easy for other people to understand. And get them to repeat things. Get them to repeat things individually, in pairs, in groups. Repeat things as much as possible to help them get their tongue around things. Fortunately, we are at a time, but they can't read in 4th grade. Yes, correct. You don't ask them to read. You need to say things or play the CD, okay? And get them to say things. Repeat. Repeat after the audio, after the CD. Repeat after you. Yes, ask them to repeat. Okay. Students have a hard time with reading and writing due to sounds that are different from their mother tongue, script that is different from their mother tongue, directionality that is different. Okay? So we begin with focus on oral skills. We begin with focus on spoken language. Audio material can be used to familiarize students with the sounds in the target language. Then phonics are used to help learners associate sounds and letters. Don't try to use phonics too soon. Yes, you can make up drills very easily. We'll try and deal with that this afternoon. If you want to encourage students to talk, prompt things, show them a picture to get them to try and remember the word. Why do you use pictures? You use pictures to associate language, words, phrases with meaning, and also associate with a visual, with the actual action, for example, or the object, so that you can help them remember. Writing in the air is to get them used to. Some of the children might have difficulty with forming the letters initially. So writing in the air just shows the movement of a continuous movement of forming a letter. Sometimes it helps to use plasticine or clay to form letters so they can see it in a multidimensional way. Somebody's saying goodbye. Not interested? Okay, and moving on to the unit breakdown of these books. Okay, as you can see, in weekend 1, you've got talk time, weekend 1, and weekend 3, you have pretty much the same sections. The only difference is words and actions here, but things change in weekend 5. That's the last year that they're using this material, when they've had some more language. Okay, looking at weekend 1. All right. Because we're running out of time. Okay. Talk time is usually where you get the language presented. Yes, I know the time is up, but we started a bit late. Okay. This is where you present and practice the language initially. Fun time is where you do more open-ended practice. Rhythms and sounds, okay, is where you get the chant, including the language. If you notice here, we talked about practice and drills and repeating things. Well, this is what you do in the chants, you see, and you do them in a way that is rhythmic, that is set, is easier to remember, and help them repeat and say things. So you might not find the chants absolutely riveting, interesting, exciting, or whatever, but they're very useful for all kinds of reasons, including pronouncing the language, remembering language that they learn. One of the things that you're going to notice in WeCan is that language is dealt with in chunks. It's not analyzed as grammar and then dealt with, because analyzing things as grammar is not appropriate for young learners. Okay? You do teach grammar, but you teach it in a different way. Okay. No, you can't give them grammar. You can't start talking about rules and things like that. And it is not necessary to translate. Okay? In the beginning, when they have no language and particularly direct method. Yes, fine, why not? We use all methods now, whatever works. Okay, but particularly online, in the beginning, when they have very little or no language, you might find yourself kind of pushed to translate something if you haven't got a picture and if you haven't been able to demonstrate things. If you do, translate and then repeat the English version and get them to repeat it. So, for example, if they can't remember how old are you as a question, and they can't understand it, they've forgotten, you say, how old are you? Translate and then say immediately after, how old are you? Get them to repeat it. How old are you? Okay. Just giving you a quick example here, but basically we try to translate as little as possible, only when it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, we use visuals, we use body language, we use context, we use all sorts of things to help them understand. And they do, because remember, this is what they've done throughout their lives to learn their mother tongue. So from a cognitive point of view, they can do it. The boxes here at the end of each lesson give you the goal. Yeah? So it's I can statement, I can ask someone and get the answer, I can point and say, and so on and so forth. So it's very, very clear. This is very clear. Okay? This is not material where you have pages that are full of things to such an extent that children get intimidated. It's simple, it's straightforward. You know exactly what you'll be working with. So it's easier to adapt. It's easier. Okay, yes, you like the I can box. I'm also getting some questions about how to teach grammar and so on and so forth. Can we wait until we get to the next session later to discuss things like that? I'm assuming that at least as many of you as possible will be attending more sessions this week. It's a new language. English is too hard for your students. Yes, it's a new language, so you have to do it as patiently as possible, but honestly, they can do it. If you translate constantly to help them, then they'll never get around to understanding English. And we want them to learn to understand. And in fact, to understand language that they don't necessarily produce, which is, again, what children tend to do, and what adults tend to do quite often as well. You listen to the broadcast, the news broadcast, but do you speak the way the broadcaster speaks? I don't think so. Okay. All right. Chant and point. This is the word section with colors, but it's chant and point again. All right. And in the fun time, you have something which is pretty standard as a stage. You can get the children to change the words in the chant and create their own chant with other words they've learned. You can ask them to provide the pictures, to color, to draw the pictures that represent the words they're using, and so on. So you go very gradually from more to less controlled activities. I'm getting a lot of questions, sorry, and comments, but it's not going to be possible. Okay, if their families know nothing about the language, Well, yes, that's really an important part. This is what it means, really, to look at, to find out about the students that you're teaching and find out about their needs, background, and so on. Yes, you will have mixed groups inevitably. We're not all the same. There will be differences. And obviously, yes, you have heard about differentiated learning. I'm going to put it within the sort of the label of inclusive learning. This is why it's best to deal with things in a way that is understandable for all and move on from there. So what I'm trying to say is this is very specific. It's very clear. You can see exactly what you're dealing with. You don't have to rush through an incredible amount of material, which is almost impossible to get through, and which makes you translate all the time. And if you translate all the time, you'll take up most of the time in the session, in your lesson, and you won't allow time for the children to speak. Something that I'm going to be repeating throughout again. This is your workbook, yeah? And you get audio with each part of the workbook. It's not over challenging. It's something to help them recognize, to help them trace. Yes, they will ask you to speak Arabic because this is what they have got used to from the past, and it's natural. I'll tell you what, in the very beginning, it's natural for the students to give you translations sometimes, just to show you that they understand. That's a different matter altogether. So you say, okay, you apple, 1, okay, bear, and they show bear, okay, so we go to bear, and they get very enthusiastic and say bear in Arabic, in their mother tongue. That's natural, but encourage them to say it in English. Okay. Now, this is your teacher's book. Yes, there are no letters in We Can 1, just in the workbook. Why? Because we don't begin with written language. We can't begin with written language. We have to make a distinction here. We begin with reading and writing in their mother tongue because they have been learning and practicing their mother tongue for 6 years, 5 years before they come to school. And so they come to school, and one of the reasons they come to school is to become literate so they can join a literate society. So we go for reading, writing. But in this case, we have a different language. The letters are just letters, symbols that represent sounds. If they are not familiar with the sound system of the language, if they're not familiar with spoken language, how are they going to be able to read and write? It doesn't make sense. So this is the reason we don't begin with reading and writing, and we begin very, very gently. And especially for your children, should I use 50% of Arabic? No, less. When you're teaching children, you should try and use as little Arabic as possible, whether you're in class or online. All I said before was that if you're online, there will be cases where you might have to give an explanation in Arabic because you can't do anything else. But this is why but try and do it as little as possible. Why letters in the workbook only? Just to help them get used to the formation of the letters, get used to associating letters and sounds, You can ask them to do all sorts of other writing activities, but please do remember, this is not the first language where they know the language and they learn how to read and write. There's a great difference here, and I think we're going to be repeating that throughout. So, step-by-step instructions in your teacher's book. Do try and follow them. Naturally, you will adapt, but they will give you all kinds of ideas for the lessons where you find them, as well as the rest of the lessons. And also, remember there are extension activities that you can use. Okay, I think, unfortunately, we'll have to stop. I wish we didn't at this point. Directionality and the whole thing. Yes, there are sessions where we're going to be dealing particularly with things like that. So thank you so much for your comments and your questions. You're absolutely wonderful. We'll try and cover as much as possible. Thank you, Noah. So I hope you'll be there in the afternoon and tomorrow and the next day if possible. Thank you so much. Okay, Suresh?
Thank you so much, Danai. And I think, Danai, you would agree, they were so engaging. I was amazed at the level of participation at this webinar. So thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Danai. I see you've covered a lot of the questions already. So I'm just going to go and jump over to the Q&A now. And I think we covered a lot of this already since they were coming in. But there are a few questions, Danai, and one of the very common ones that, we know that is that I can speak with my students in Arabic or just English because some of them do not understand. I want you to stress this point once more. I know you've done it, but yes, if you could just enlighten us.
I've lost you.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I know you've mentioned about the point about can I speak with my students in Arabic or just in English because some of them do not understand.
Okay. Try and speak English as much as possible. I would try English. Try to become someone else when you're teaching English and get the kids to see you differently as well. It's going to help in the end. Now, but to be very practical and reasonable, in the beginning, you will have to say some things in Arabic. You will have to maybe explain what they need to do in Arabic. So all within reason, but it's important to try and check yourself so that you don't slip into the business of explaining everything in Arabic. You're not doing them a favor by explaining in Arabic. They will never be able to understand English, and we get that kind of result quite often. We get students who can do exercises and who can translate, but they can't understand what they hear. They can't communicate in the language. No, they won't hate the language if you speak English only, particularly if you're dealing with kids that are also involved in games and all kinds of other material on their computers. No, they are not native. They're not native speakers. This is exactly why you have to focus on spoken language, get them to repeat things very frequently, go back to things you've done in the beginning of every lesson, and if you look at your teacher's book, there are suggestions about what to do to starting activities with your lessons, and those activities are meant to recycle and recycle again. And at the end of the day, we can all do the best we can, okay? Yes, body language is important, pictures are important, many things are important. All we're saying is use other ways of demonstrating meaning instead of translation. Translation is quite a demanding thing to do. And yes, good, you can do it and you can show them you know. But this is not about you knowing, we know you know. This is about the children learning to communicate in this language. you know, it's not just a language to study, to learn about. We don't want them to learn about the language. We want them to be able to learn the language and use it to the best of their abilities to communicate with mistakes, with false starts, with all kinds of things like that. Because you have 40 in class, it's best to speak English and translate as little as possible. Some of your questions, I'm afraid, cannot all be answered in 1 hour session, so I'm doing the best I can.
You've done wonderfully. And I just mention that thank you everyone for joining us. We know it was an hour session, so if you have to go back and do classes or anything that you have to do, please feel free. But feel free to stay on if you want to for the Q&A. I just want to stress that we have another session. So this was session 1. We have session 2 in the afternoon at 1 p.m. KSA time, where we talk about presenting and practicing language. If you've not registered for the session yet, I can drop the link in the chat box and you can register for it here. Feel free to register for the session. And then, because if you've just registered for the first session, you will only have the first link. But if you will have to register for the other session. So I'm just going to pick up the link and drop it off for you so you have it and you can just register. Please let us know if you're having any issues. We want to help out. If you have any trouble, please let us know in the chat box now. Okay. Also, one more thing before I move on to the Q&A. Please use the link that's in your email. So you will receive an email about the confirmation email. It will have the link. And then please avoid using your colleague's link when you join the webinar. What happens is your name is not going to appear as your name. And in the end, when you have a certificate, it's not going to have your name on it. It's going to have your colleague's name because according to the record, it was attended by your colleague. Faisal, you cannot correct your name now. It's just how you register. So be careful when you register for the webinar. You want to write the name that you want to see on your certificate. So write it exactly how you want to see it on the certificate. Please do not use Arabic when you write your name email, because when you write your name, because the system does not recognize Arabic language. So if you write your name in English, that would help. So please try to do that. What else? Wafa, Isa, you won't be able to write your name again. Your name will show as you registered. Hind, if you've already registered, that's fine. You will have the inbox, you will have the email that you need to log in for. Oh, one important thing raised by Sarah. It's not going to be the same link, by the way, that you joined this morning. It's going to be a different link. So it's not going to be the same link that you used this morning. It's going to be a different link. The link is going to be in your email. So it's a unique link for everyone. That's why I repeat, please do not use your colleague's link. What other questions are there? Any other questions? I think one of the, Tahini, I think, raised a very good point, and she said, is it okay if I can have the session, the handout for session 2? She wants to go over some stuff and come prepared for the session.
Doesn't have to, but that's fine.
All right. So that's the session, that's the handout for session 2. I've just dropped it. If you want to download this, then you can download it and come prepared. I repeat, the session is at 1 p.m. today, KSA time. And you will have the link in your email to log in the webinar. I'm just reading out if there are any questions that I can address. Because we want. How can I log out? You will just have to use the cross button there and just log out.
Can you see me? No, we can't. I can't see you. Can we leave now? Yes?
Yes. Okay, I think certificate. Hafia, I will just mention the certificate. You will receive the certificate after we finish the webinar series. So that is going to be after November 19th. That's when you will be able to. I will drop the link to the handout because some of you are asking if I can. This handout is for the second session, by the way. So you don't need it right now, but if you can download it and come back for session number 2, that would be great. Okay, I guess we've covered a lot of questions, Danai, to be honest. You have to read them as they come along. So I think there is just one that we need to address, which is the letters were slightly mentioned in the books, while letters were not mentioned in the books, just as they were workbooks. I don't understand.
That really concerns, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that really concerns Weekend 1 mostly. Again, focus is on spoken language, not on reading and writing to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the reason that they get sort of manipulation exercises, forming the letters, tracing, some of the very traditional things children do with reading and writing. I saw a question there that says, have you been preparing? Is that question addressed to me? I don't know. Okay, maybe it's people chatting. So this is why you don't get focused on the letters to begin with, but you will see that very soon, very quickly, but very gradually, you get exposure to capital letters, recognizing capital letters, tracing letters, okay, writing letters, word completion, and so on and so forth. It's because we begin with focus on spoken language. Remember, this is a different language. It's not their mother tongue. They need to become familiar with the sound system so that reading and writing can make sense. Again, written language, letters, okay, represent sounds in the language. So if you're not at all familiar with the sounds of the language, it's impossible to deal with the letters in the language in a sensible way, especially if you're a child. I hope that answers it.
Mm-hmm. I think that does. I guess that's it. We're at the end. Unless you have any more questions for me or Danai, we can log off. And we'll see you at 1 p.m. today.
Yep.
Can we get the handout for course 1? Yes, sure. I will link that for you for this session. For the session in the afternoon, please use the link that's in your email. You should have received an email from McGraw Hill that has the link to join for the webinar. The same link will not work. Stay connected with us on our social channels. Thank you so much. You guys were brilliant. This was a very, very engaging session. We thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you for being with us and participating. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, Danai.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. You are wonderful. You have been wonderful.
Yes, indeed.